Good evening, good evening, good evening. This is the Bishop Speaks, and I'm so glad to be back recording another video. I know it's been a while, and some of you all may be wondering where I was and what have I been doing, but I will get into that. First and foremost, I had a bout with COVID that happened the beginning of last month. That was actually my second time dealing with COVID-19. I was down for a good 2 weeks, and then I started to get back on the mend. My mother actually started feeling symptoms before I did. She literally started feeling sick the last Wednesday of July, tested positive for COVID on August 2nd. And literally the day after she tested positive, that's when I started feeling sick. We tested negative maybe a good week after that, but we still were dealing with the symptoms. Of course, we do have pre-existing conditions, so it takes us longer to get over certain things. So COVID was difficult, but for the second time, we made it through. I also want to be transparent and say that I have begun the process of recovery and rehabilitation. I can't go into details, but I will say it has truly been a blessing for me. My mother did suggest it, and definitely when you're going through recovery in the way that I am, you basically have to pull from inside of yourself what is really going on in the heart, not just in the mind, but what's going on in your heart. And I've done that. So when I tell you I recognize the problem and I can't wait until my next meeting and to know that I'm not alone, that is comforting for me. And so when I get back to the next meeting, I will definitely have more issues to confront, more issues that I have to deal with, but it's all worth it because I know that there are brighter days ahead. I wanted to talk to you all about last night's presidential debate between Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump. And I said to myself, this debate, this was before it aired, I said, this debate is going to be a hot, god-awful mess. But I said to myself, I'm going to watch it. I'm going to see what both candidates have to say. And if I feel like it gets too crazy, I'm going to turn it off. That's what I said to myself. So last night, Mom and I were in the living room. We were watching it. And first and foremost, when the candidates walked out, Kamala was walking towards the center in an attempt to shake hands with Donald Trump. That's how it normally goes. One candidate comes out from the left side, the other comes from the right side. They shake hands, introduce themselves, and go to their respective podiums. Well, Donald Trump did not walk out in the middle. He was going straight towards his podium without even shaking Kamala's hand. Well, Kamala made sure, she said, look, I'm Kamala Harris. Nice to meet you. Gave him the handshake, and of course, Trump then had no choice but to shake her hand. And that there really set the tone for the evening. And I knew, okay, I see where this is going. And I knew that Trump was going to say something foul or outlandish, as he normally does. This has been his MO for the past 8 years. I'm sure longer than that, but as far as being in politics, it's been this way for the past 8 years. There's really nothing new. So I was watching the debate and started off with Kamala expressing her policies. She mentioned the child tax credit. She mentioned the building of the 3 million homes and making sure prices for homes are affordable. Trump basically blamed all of America's issues on the immigrants and the crisis at the southern border, which I knew was going to happen. I said to myself, and I gave myself these predictions. I said, Kamala Harris is going to over exaggerate and embellish her accomplishments as vice president, while Trump is going to blame all of our problems, all of our situations on the immigrants and how they need to be deported. I'm going to tell you this. I've told you all before. I don't care for Kamala Harris, and for surely I don't care for Donald Trump. I think both of them are inadequate. And yes, I know people are saying, well, Kamala has experience. She's a lawyer. She's a prosecutor. She's been a district attorney. She's been a senator. But honestly, I said this on Twitter. I said neither one of them, Kamala or Trump, neither one of them is going to fight against the Fortune 500. They're not going to fight against Big Pharma. And they are not going to go against the industries of war and militarism. That's just, they're not going to do it. Which is why a lot of people like myself, we're voting third party. I'm voting for Dr. Cornel West. I've said it many, many times, not just here on YouTube, but throughout my social media. I am voting for the candidate that I feel is going to truly fight for we, the people, not for these companies, not for these corporations, and not for the big business of war. But I will say, overall, Trump underestimated Kamala. Kamala did a much better job in that debate. But I also said this, it was easy for Kamala to excel when you have an egotistical, uneducated, unhinged, and corrupt snake oil salesman as your opponent. I would have loved for Dr. Cornel West to have been able to participate in the debate, because personally I feel like he would have definitely, we're not going to put Trump in the equation. Trump, he was basically pulling things out of his derriere, throwing things at the wall hoping they would stick. I do feel that if Dr. West would have been able to participate in last night's debate, he would have mopped the floor with Kamala. And he would have questioned why we are shelling out billions of dollars, not just to Ukraine, but to Israel. And when we have innocent Palestinians who are dying, it to me, it would have been a total shift in the atmosphere had Dr. West been able to be on that stage. But unfortunately, as I've said before, he has been completely overlooked by the mainstream media, by the majority of registered voters. I think it's horrible. But this is what happens when the majority of Americans won't break away from the major two-party system. And honestly, the debate was inconsequential. I think that at this point, we're heading into the middle of the month of September. We're less than 2 months away from the election. At this point, people's minds are already made up, including my own. I know it had to happen, but at this point, the people who are voting for Kamala are staying on that side of the fence. The people who are voting for Trump, they're going to stay on that side of the fence. But for these individuals, these registered voters who are still unsure about what they want, I really feel that is a facade. I think deep down inside, they know when push comes to shove who they're going to vote for. And don't get me wrong, I understand that the economy is a major issue. Immigration is a major issue. We still have the issue of the student loan debt. We still have 2 wars overseas. And honestly, Trump or Kamala, they're not going to fight against these forces. They're not going to fight against the forces of capitalism, militarism. It's just going to be the status quo overall. And I'll say this, and I was talking to my mother about it. Her opinion is that no matter who wins, it's going to be disastrous. If Kamala wins, you're going to have a lot of angry, vengeful people out there. And there may be a repeat or something worse than what happened on January 6, 2021. If Trump wins, if you are not a white, male, conservative Christian nationalist, you are going to greatly suffer. But I'm going to tell you where the debate, what I really said to myself, you know what, turn this off. When Donald Trump said that they were aborting babies at 7, 8, and even 9 months into the pregnancy, and even after the babies are born, they're executing the babies. That was the first inkling that I knew, okay, I'm not about to watch this whole debate. But when he said that the immigrants were coming here, specifically to Springfield, Ohio, and they were eating people's dogs and cats, I was done. I was completely and utterly done. I was flabbergasted. I was exhausted. And it really astonishes me even today how, on top of being a bigot, a corrupt businessman, he's a convicted felon. 34 counts. And he still has a good chance of winning the presidency. And my question is, what if that would have been Kamala with 34 convictions? Or better yet, let's take it back. Could Barack Obama, could he have still run for office with 34 felony convictions? Could he have still run for office? I tell you, the more we go in, the closer we get to election day, I just say, let November 5th just come and go, because I have had enough. We have had, I think all of us have had enough in one way, shape, or form. Um, Again, I don't think the debate really shifted for anybody. I feel that, again, people, the MAGA folks are going to vote for Trump. We've got one side voting for Kamala Harris. And you have people like me who say, well, both of them are terrible candidates and will vote third party. And I know, don't get me wrong, I know deep down in my heart and in my soul that Dr. Cornel West does not have a chance. But I feel like my vote is better suited towards real principles, real policies over party. And I've gotten criticized. I have definitely gotten my fair share of questions. But again, voting is not just about who has the better shot of winning the office. It's about voting for the candidate that is completely or almost totally aligned with your beliefs, that are in line with what you are looking for from a leader. And that is why I am standing beside Dr. West and Dr. Melina Abdullah. And again, I'll say this, if you want to look at their policies and plans, go to the website www.cornelwest2024.com. It's all right there on his platform. But as you can see, I'm just, that last night really threw me for a loop, and this is what it's come to. All I know is that the God I serve is still on the throne. He sits high and he looks slow. And no matter who becomes president, God will never fail. He never sleeps. He never slumbers. And he knows how all of this is going to end. I will accept what God allows, but it doesn't mean I'm going to vote against my principles and what I feel are priorities. So I'm sure I'll make another video because, of course, it seems like every day something new pops up. But I promise you all, the Bishop Speaks will make more videos on a regular basis because there's a lot that I want to talk about. I know you all are interested in hearing, so I'm going to oblige by that. So as we get closer to November 5th, I'll keep posting. And for those of you who are looking for support during these difficult times, I'm here. You can post your comments. I'll interact with you as much as I can. And you all have a good evening.